Hello, everyone.
Hey guys!
Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Surface podcast. I am Snezondo.
And I'm Sisipo.
And yeah, welcome to another episode. Before we get into the topic of the day, please, guys, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell button. On YouTube, we can be found at Beyond the Surface podcast.
That's right.
And on Instagram, we are Beyond the Surface pod.
That's true. And thank you guys so much for your engagement. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for commenting. Thank you so much for subscribing. So
Just
please continue.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Yeah. Are you going to do that whole typical South African thing where they go like...
Thank you. I don't know what the others are.
No.
I'm a terrible Nguni person.
Oh, you are so... Like, the Nguni privilege just peaked so quick.
Please.
Oh my gosh.
You gonna cancel me?
Yeah, you deserve it. Okay, so we're talking all things communication
Ooh,
today.
senzima.
I was just telling Sneh that I read this quote. I was like, everyone is an adult until it's time to communicate. And I felt that.
I'm feeling it right now because I'm just like, where do I begin? What are the words? What are the words that I'm going to use today to talk about this topic?
It's
Because yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think I've gotten it right. And you know what? I'll be the first to say this.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been the person that says communicate, communicate, communicate. And I don't think I got what it meant to communicate. Because in my mind, communication was just chitter chatter. You know? Honey, ngifonele, sikhulume, ngifuna ukukhuluma nawe.
Yeah.
Mina nje ngifuna ukukhuluma.
Yeah.
Awukwazi ukuba busy ungakhulumi nami.
Yeah.
Talk to me all the time, boo. That was me.
Yeah.
Until I had to talk about my feelings. Until I had to talk about what I want. What are my needs? Oh, gifunani.
And then all of a sudden...
I get away into mum. Aphela magama. Ayaphela magama. I was mute. I was on mute.
Oh my gosh, okay.
It matters too. We can talk about anything. We can talk about whatever. Like when it's chitter chatter and we're just like, how was your day? Easy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like just in specific to like a relationship. I think this
Yeah.
is where it was a bit difficult for me. When I had to communicate my feelings, like what I was feeling,
Yeah.
my frustrations, what I want, what I need. Hi, on mute.
Couldn't do it.
On mute.
I think you actually at the beginning mentioned such an interesting point that I think people struggle to differentiate
Yeah.
when it comes to communication. People think
Chitter chatter.
just because I can nye, I'm such a good communicator.
No,
Oh
you're
my
not.
gosh.
No, you're not.
Because you just walk in and you start blabbing? No.
I think for me, communication is really
It's specific,
big.
actually.
Yes. I was
It's very
about to say,
specific.
it's very specific.
Yeah.
And
It's
and
direct,
deliberate.
yes. And it has intention because it's trying to either explain something or resolve something or understand something. So there's
Clarify.
an objective behind
Yes.
communication. It's not banter.
Exactly. And I think that's the key, right? Whatever you are trying to communicate, what is the objective? Sikhulumelani. What is it that you are trying to explain?
Yeah. Or seek to understand or
Yes,
clarify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it can't just be that communication is just a fun thing, banter back and forth.
No.
Just to hear each other's voices, just to hear each other different pitch. No. Communication, I think, as fun as it can be, there has to be an end point.
Yeah. It has to have sort of like, how can I put it? Not necessarily to resolve everything, but it has to have a point. It has to have
A
meaning
purpose.
and a purpose. Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, there are different types, and I think what we're trying to say is also there's different types of communications.
Obviously, yes.
And they all serve different functions. And I think perhaps maybe what we could just delve in a lot more here is, you know, how to navigate adult conversations.
I'm sorry. See?
Right?
Because I'm
And I-
like,
and I
am I
think-
really an adult?
You're not sure.
Pretty sure I throw tantrums. I don't know if I can do this. I throw my toys.
And that's normal.
I'm ready to be like, nah, honey, no child, not me, not today. And you're not actually communicating when you say those things. Because I think, and I think social media creates a certain like idea in our minds of how we should go about communicating our feelings. I don't like this, boom, bam, thank you, I'm out. You say I don't like something and you're out the door. And that's not communication. You don't like something, why? And it's just about like the way that you say things is just as important as saying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
That's so true.
And that for me as an adult, I've learned is a key important thing about communication. And that's just not like with people that I do life with, like at work. If there's a place that I've learned to communicate in an orderly fashion,
Yeah.
is at work.
Yeah.
And there it's like, and I remember phoning you just being so frustrated. And I remember you being like, listen, you have to communicate this thing and don't be emotional. I'm like, what are you trying to say? I said, I'm angry.
Yeah.
I am mad. I'm livid. And you want me to have no emotion?
Child.
And I think that was a really important lesson that I had to learn.
Yeah.
Like even in the workplace, communicate your frustrations, communicate whatever it is that you need to communicate, right? But the way in which you do it is very key.
Yeah.
Because in the workplace, you don't want to be umuntu or helter-skelter. You don't want to be a person that just can't articulate themselves. You really have to be in a place where you channel your emotion and you pick those words carefully.
Yeah.
And you don't let people rile you up to a place where the things that are coming out of your mouth are not connected to your brain.
Oh, that's so important. Repeat.
The things that are coming out of your mouth are not connected to your brain. They have to be connected at all times for you to be able to articulate exactly what it is that you want and what it is that you expect from the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
And you have to do it in a way that is not super emotional, in a way that honestly your message is clear and can be heard. Because I think people that you work with will definitely use your emotions against
you. Yeah.
And you will just seem like you're not a stable human being. And won't be taken seriously.
And I'm sure, I think everyone who works in corporate South Africa is very familiar with the gaslighting that happens in that space. And trust me, if you don't know how to say things, that can just spiral out of control very easily.
Exactly.
And it's almost like you have to be like a robot. And I think that's one type of communication where I think that is just, it's so important because you constantly have to gather yourself towards yourself. Because if you lose the plot.
Listen, M17, there's no eye rolling, there's no I'ma check you. You just have to be poised and literally connect your mouth to your brain.
That's so difficult.
And I think for me, it's like I've learned, and I think communication has a lot of control your emotions too, right?
Yes.
Because people will rile you up. People will antagonize you in very smart ways.
Yeah.
But you have to work at controlling yourself and keeping calm. And I found that, like, you know what, I'm not entering any conversation unless there's a glass of water so that I can just sip. Because instead of me doing a movement, a head roll, and whatever, I'm going to just sip some water, collect my thoughts, and make sure that it's whatever comes out of my mouth is key.
Yes. And you've thought about it. But I think with that too, I think there's a lesson also just outside of the work environment that type of communication teaches you, right? And I think even in a personal capacity with friendships, relationships, family is always speaking your mind, right? And I think, when you're communicating, your thoughts with someone else, you would want them to come out as clear as possible, right? With understanding, right? And to avoid any confusion.
Yes.
And I think sometimes now, outside of the work environment, in a personal setting, that can be a bit difficult, with people you do life with. And I think that's the tricky part about communication. The emotions come to play. Yes. The emotions come to play. And I think regardless of whether the emotions are there or not, and I think it's okay. I mean, no one can speak without expressing emotion.
Yeah.
That's just, it's not possible, right?
But be smart about it.
Be smart about it, and maybe use your emotions with intention.
Yes.
But the whole point, and I think that's the art also of communicating, and which is something I'm still learning. Because my first instinct sometimes, when I don't understand something, or when I'm not ready to engage in it, I just ignore it.
Yeah.
Like that's my communication style. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And you like to be like, no, let's hear your thoughts, bring them to the table, because and I'm like, no.
Yeah, and I think I'm just that person that I probably think I want to hear it all. I do. I think I want to hear it all because I'm not about to back down, right? That's just my energy, as a person. But, and I've gotten to a point in my life where thinking you want to hear it all probably isn't the best thing, because you have to... Communication, as much as it is about what we were saying, solving, resolving, understanding...
You have to be ready.
You have to be ready, exactly. Yeah. And I found that, like, thinking or wanting somebody to just talk is to your detriment, because they're gonna get to the table and say things they don't mean. They're gonna get to the table with their thoughts all muddled up, and then actually probably will create more confusion and more strife.
Which defeats the whole purpose.
Exactly.
And that's where then conflict, because now it's like, excuse me, what did you just say?
Exactly.
What do you mean?
And it's like, and it's like, the thing is, like, as much as sometimes you don't intend to offend, an offense is an offense. It's already been out there. It's been done. Yeah. So I think it's like you're saying, like, as much as I've always been the person that says, come on, let's talk, I've also had to learn to be like, okay, rather communicate when you're in the space where you feel like you can articulate, where you feel like you're centered, where you feel like you've collected your words, because that's going to be more effective for the message
to be carried across,
and for us to reach the end goal that we're wanting to reach, right? So I think the communication game also must not be rushed. I think there's a lot of thought that must go into the words that we say and how we say them. The how is very important. You might have all the words, right? But if I'm wrapped up in an emotion and I'm wrapped up in whatever it is that I'm wrapped up in, how I say something, it's not going to land.
That's true.
That's
true.
And if there's a key thing that I've learned with like in terms of communicating, especially in my adult life, is what I say and what you hear are not always in alignment.
That's true.
And I sometimes have to speak to the people in my life, especially in my close personal life. I have to speak to them how they will hear things. Usisipo is a very direct person, right? And so when I speak to her, I must be very direct. Get straight to the point. Another friend of mine is a bit soft. And how I speak to her is, I have to be very careful with the words that I use, and I have to be very cognizant of the way that I say things, just so that she can hear me. And I've learned that as an adult, you've got to shift and communicate in the way that the next person can hear you, and not just because it's about you. Because if your message is not heard,
what's the point? And it's like, what's the point?
You're going to be repeating yourself and you get annoyed. But learning to communicate, especially with those in your inner circle, in the way that they understand and the way that they hear messages, major key.
That is actually so true. And it goes to speak to that, like, really communicating, there's no one language of communicating.
Yeah.
There's no one tone.
Yeah.
Right? So if I prefer, to speak in a, blunt, direct way, and I move on, doesn't necessarily work for someone else.
Yes.
And so it's my responsibility as well, as a person who communicates in a certain way, to be, cognizant of the fact that not everyone, speaks that same way.
Exactly.
And they're not going to receive
Yep.
in that same way. So it's like a two-way thing. And I think sometimes, especially in like our, modern age culture, where it's like, ugh, I hate people who don't like to communicate. I hate people. But have you ever taken time to actually understand how that person communicates? It may be that they do communicate with you, but you don't even hear them.
Gee.
And so I think it's really such a two-way street, and requires one to also be in tune
and introspect.
Yeah, with how they communicate, how they receive, and the person that they're talking to. And it's because it's definitely not just, I can tell you, I'm running late, or I'm like, yeah, that's communication. It's being courteous. Those are two different things. And I think sometimes people can think, just because I can alert someone in time that, I'm late or I can't do something. No, I mean, you are communicating, but that's just being courteous, right? But communication really goes above and beyond that, right? It really requires thought.
Yes.
Because you don't just open your mouth and start blabbing. That's not how it works. So sometimes I think sometimes talkative people I've seen like to, pride themselves as being like, I'm a good communicator. Just because
that was me.
They can occupy a room and space, and then they just go at it.
And I think, I'm a very talkative person, in the sense that, like, especially with the ones that know me. They all blab, If I'm very comfortable, I'll blab. But the people that I'm very comfortable with are the same people that I also have to communicate my feelings with. And I find it very, very difficult to articulate how I feel or how things make me feel. It's like you will disappoint me and I just go into a shell. I just don't want to talk, and I'm just like, I'm in my feelings. And no. You don't, as an adult, in my experience, you don't just get to sit there and sulk.
Yeah. No, and I don't do sulking.
Especially if you have to be in a space with people and do life with people, you don't get to sit there and just sulk and just be in your feelings. At some point, honey, we got to open it up and we got to talk. And you have to be able to talk about, okay, I'm disappointed. And what disappointed me was, and you have to articulate.
Yeah.
And you have to be very careful with how you channel those things, and it's not easy. So being talkative and communicating are two things, Nje, that are not the same.
No, definitely not.
Exactly, because you have to communicate your feelings, you have to communicate your thoughts, your ideas and your dreams with people.
Yeah.
And how you go about doing that, you have to figure it out. You have to work it out. And I found that, like, I'm able to write better sometimes. Like, me saying my feelings or my thoughts or whatever out loud, it's very hard for me.
Yeah.
So I will write it out. I'll write it out. And, when I'm writing it out, I'm like, yes. You know what, actually, what let me just give a bit of a backstory. I was always that person that, like, I'm ready to talk, let's go for it. And then I get to the conversation and bang,
blank
shy.
out.
And I just, I don't say the things I wanted to say. And then I'm in the shower and I'm just like, but I should have said this when she said this. And I should have said this when they said this. And I'm here arguing in the shower the way I should have argued in real life. And I've gotten to a point where whenever I feel something, I write it down, and I'm able to, for some reason, articulate better when I write my points down. And so before I enter into a conversation, I'm not entering there ready for ammo. No. I'm entering there prepared with my thoughts. Not that I'm going to enter into a conversation, going to shoot somebody down, I'm ready to attack. No, I'm ready to share my thoughts and how I feel about a certain thing, or even if it's about me talking about my feelings or whatever it is that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I enter a conversation with some sense of an idea of, of where I am. I'm located, man. I'm centered. And I found that like writing things down, I'm better at articulating myself. So by the time I have to actually talk, yeah, well, the words are there.
Okay. Why do you think it's difficult though to do that? Because I think naturally, I think it's everyone's.
Some people are better than others.
Yeah. Some people are better than others. But like, what do you think makes it so difficult to?
I don't know.
To just stand in front of like someone or just explain.
I think sometimes
yourself to someone.
I think it's a bit embarrassing.
Yeah,
I think
makes you
me,
vulnerable. I think.
Yes,
I feel that way,
especially when it's like a feeling that makes me uncomfortable, or it's something that I have to talk about that's awkward and uncomfortable, or you're calling someone out, right? Because my intention is never to call you out and make you feel small. My intention is to, in me calling you out or me correcting you, let you know exactly how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And that is a bit uncomfortable and to some extent can be a bit embarrassing also if I have to talk about something that it's just an uncomfortable thing for me and I don't know why I'm tense.
I think I get nervous.
Yes.
Yeah, it's I think it's such a, like I say, it just makes you vulnerable, right? And sort of like exposed and kind of like you feel like often, like sometimes I'm just like, oh, why must I explain myself? That type of thing.
And also it's just like you're losing your street cred. Like I want to be rough and tough.
Yeah,
and
like why must I now come there?
Affects me, and it's like now I must just
strip
and gizelana and just tell you just like how sad or. You know, even how happy and excited I am.
Yeah,
it's just a weird.
It is, and I think that's why a lot of people avoid it. Because that's what I also want to talk about is like people literally just
avoid communication.
Or it's easy to, deflect or
okay, but you see, there's so much danger in that.
Yeah.
Because then you will bottle and bottle
that's
and bottle and bottle, and then there will come a stage where you just are going to explode. And then when you explode, you're saying things from 5 years ago, all compact into one, and it doesn't make sense. It's just too much information. And you're also not going to get the response that you want because people are just be like, what the hell? What's going on with you? Are you okay? Yeah, well, so it's really so much better for me, Prof, is to sit down. I feel a feeling. I think about the feeling. I write it down. I talk about it. That's my formula. Because I need to sort of. I don't want to feel a feeling. Immediately talk because I have.
You need to process it. You need to process it.
Yes. Processing, guys, is very important. Process your thoughts. That's why I said it needs to go from the brain to the mouth, not just verbal diarrhea. Because it stinks. Sorry, it really does. So it's just really important for me to go through that process of thinking about the things that I want to say.
And like, what is your, how you're saying sometimes you express yourself by writing?
Yeah.
Are you like a texter or like face to face? Like, I want to see your eyes, look at your facial expressions and everything when you communicate. And like, what's the difference?
You're getting deep into me, honey. I think I can do both.
Okay.
But I don't think I like texting. Like, I'm a pick up the phone. I want to hear what you're actually saying. Because sometimes I think texting, there's a lot of tone that's missed. There's a lot of things, extra little nuances that we miss in a text. That sometimes you don't really get. Unless we're communicating soft stuff. This is really about like the deeper, finer details of life. Yeah, well, I think sometimes it's better just for me to hear your voice and gauge your tone and how you're feeling and so that I can also know when to, okay, this is getting a bit heated.
Okay.
Back down. Because I think via text, it's very easy to just misunderstand something and misjudge, and now you're on a whole other tangent. And the other person is... And then to clear things up, it's just like we're clearing up and we're going back, and then there's screenshots and people are just being like, but you said this.
Yeah.
And then there's, it gets a bit dramatic.
No, I definitely think I think there are for me there are people who I'm fine with texting. it's like, okay, because I know how they speak. And then there are other people, if I'm not too familiar, or I think we communicate better if we do it verbally.
Yeah.
Then, so for me, it's specific to certain types of people.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It depends on the type of conversation that I'm having.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, and the depth of it.
Yeah.
I would prefer to
hear your voice.
Yeah, because I think when I hear somebody's voice and I can hear disappointment, or I can hear physical is even better.
Yeah.
You know?
But you can read body language and all that
and
stuff.
And body language is communication.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, we communicate with our bodies, and you can assess a situation better.
Yeah.
And you can actually physically see someone, because sometimes actually you just say a whole bunch of words and you don't realize how they affect the other person. And when they're in front of you, or when you hear their voice, you're actually able to see how the words that you use impact another person. And I think it's also it's very important to recognize what your words can do.
Yeah.
And how they can really just break people or build people up.
Yeah.
You know, in Zulu we say umlomo uyadala, and it's very important. Just even about your own life, the things that you say about your own life, those things are important. But how you talk to another person, and seeing another person receive something and how it makes them feel, I think is key.
That's so true, and I think that's another art of community that people don't talk about.
Yeah,
is like, do you care like how your words are received or the message you communicate? And I think people, it's just like, I said what I said. So yeah,
I feel like you can say what you want to say in a much better way. Like when people get your message, but they don't leave there broken down.
Yeah.
I mean, they can leave there like you know, upset or whatever, but I think there's a difference when you really just break somebody down with your words and just like cut them down to size. I don't think that's always necessary. I think you can communicate, I didn't like this makes me feel like this, but don't then just break people down for the sake of it.
That's true. And I mean, sometimes we do offend people, and I think that's also normal. Yeah, and sometimes, and sometimes you get carried away. Sometimes you get emotional, so you say things you don't mean. You know, I think that's part of communication.
Equally, you know, you say things you don't mean.
Yeah.
But the moment you recognize that you said something you didn't mean.
But pride is also online.
Yeah,
so
I'm not both going be to online. Your pride even online.
You'll get it online.
All the wrong things are online. Can we choose humility to be online? But I'm just saying. No, seriously. But I think it's also important then to communicate. So it's okay. I said a lot of things that I didn't mean.
But which ones are those? Because now your ego is, you're going to be like, yeah, but you deserved that. So I was right by saying that. And the other person is like, no, you weren't right. And you're like, yeah, I was right.
It's okay to be wrong.
Who's wrong?
Okay,
well.
But
and that's the thing.
I'm just saying, like, for people that you care about, I think it's important to also learn to apologize. And you know, that's something that I learned from my parents, right? Yeah. Like, parents are always that authority in your life, blah, 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 blah. But to have parents who can apologize, that's such an important thing that I think my parents have communicated to me, to be able to be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I think it's also just opened up various aspects of our communication. Just because I can recognize when they are wrong, they actually say it with their mouths.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Acknowledge it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing, our parents, sometimes you'll see your parent like, oh, they know they're wrong, but they don't actually say it. But the minute somebody communicates and says, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I think it just changes the dynamic of a relationship.
That's true.
Because it shows that really pride is not always online. You know, humility sometimes takes the floor.